put anything new inside of them, that it's already there. And all I had to do was to somehow get them focused well enough so they could get the information they needed, the solutions for their problems, the instantaneous high self-image and self-confidence right outside of themselves.
So you're drawing it, and that is the original meaning of the word education. So in a sense, you were truly educating, as
which
Plato
I didn't
would have
understand
explained,
at that time, that's for
rather
sure.
than instilling.
Exactly. Educare from the Latin, to pull out of a person rather than to place in. Well, I didn't understand it analytically at that time. I would just start talking with them. And always, my first and foremost focus before I sit down to do any therapy with anyone is to get centered myself, which means to move into my higher self. That's just my perspective of what I'm doing. But when I'm in that higher perspective, in my higher self, what I found was that as they started telling me all their problems, if I could stay in that higher self, it's more a state of light rather than darkness. It's more a state of love rather than fear. What would happen is, as many times as they would say all the negative, at a certain point, if I could stay in my higher self, they would move into theirs also. And so what would happen is, they'd be right in the middle of telling me, Sharon, I've always hated myself. I never had a high self-image. I've never had any faith in anything that I've ever done. I've always been unhappy. And I'd be sitting there waiting for that moment. And I would see a little light go on their face, just like what just went on your face, okay? Wonderful to see. And when that light would go on, I would say, could I stop for 1 second? I've got to ask you a couple of questions, all right? And they'd say, okay, what is it? You claim that you've never felt good about yourself, and you've never had one moment of feeling good in your whole life, right? Yeah, that's what yeah. I'd say, how do you feel right now? Well, they couldn't even say it, Romeo, okay? I don't know, it's weird. I'm feeling very good about myself at this moment. Well, I thought you had never, ever felt good about yourself. No, I really do feel good about myself. They moved into a space, a place within themselves, Romeo, that all of us have, because it's our real self. Okay, all of us have it. We're born in that state of consciousness. And then we learn this other stuff. Okay? So this is a return to, as Christianity teaches, until thou becomest as a child, you cannot experience the kingdom of heaven. Well, it's not a matter of experiencing the kingdom of heaven. It's learning to live in the kingdom of heaven, which is what I call living in my higher self, being centered. So what I noticed with these people was they couldn't even say it. They moved into a place, full-blown already, had self-confidence and love and joy. And the trick was to teach them to stay here 1 whole hour, or 2, or 24 hours. Okay? And then to get into the habit of thought of being in their higher self.
Well, I still can picture clearly when I first heard you explain this, and I was part of a group, it just impressed me as the simplest statement of everything that Christianity is all about. To live in the presence, and to understand that presence as within you. The kingdom of God is within you.
Exactly.
And it was so simple, the utter simplicity of the process and the profundity of the results. It just staggered me that first time I heard it, and every time I think about it, I'm
how amazing that transformation can be so easy.
And it's a
let me put
practice.
it this way, it's simple. I'm not saying it's easy, because I can also tell you some things that can prevent a person from getting centered or moving to their higher selves. But as far as simplicity, move into your real self and walk around on this earth, and you will create the kind of joy and that you want in life.
Distinguish the real self from the other self.
All right, now this is the other one that I figured out.
Okay.
Is that after doing this and moving people into this state of consciousness over and over again, I found that the state of consciousness that they consistently were in when they moved into their own center was always extremely positive, extremely loving, extremely compassionate, extremely present, moment-oriented. And they kept saying over and over again, I feel like a giant. When I'm centered, I feel like a giant. So I went about, I was going to, in the process of writing my second book, and it was going to be called Awaken the Giant Within You. All right. Well, someone else came out with that title because I took so long. I'm still on the last chapter. I'm still almost finished with the second book. But the point is, there's a giant that lives inside of you. Full-blown giant inside of you at every moment of your existence. And so is there with all of humanity. Okay? We are basically highly evolved beings. So highly evolved we can cause things to happen with our minds. That's pretty highly evolved. I've never met one ape, if in fact we evolved from apes. It may be 1 billion years before an ape can get so highly evolved that it can cause something to happen with its mind. We're doing that all the time, Romeo. I know because I watched what happened as these clients of mine took the time and the ability and took what was necessary to learn to begin to cause things to happen with their minds. And what happens is, whatever they were causing before they learned centeredness is totally different once they realize it's you causing it with your mind.
Elaborate a little bit on the undesirable things we avoid while being centered.
Okay.
And the positive things that increase as a result of being
All right.
centered.
Well, one of the concepts that I came up with as I just watched these clients, I've had like over 7,000 or 8,000 of them. I stopped counting after a while, but I watched them one after another. And what I found is a concept that is espoused by many religions, and there's many people who are espousing this particular concept. I didn't get it from a book or a religion. I watched my people. I think it's being called the law of attraction amongst certain religions and groups, okay? Bottom line, I don't understand how this works. I know one thing. When a person is in a very positive state of consciousness, as they walk around on this earth in that positive state of consciousness, they tend to attract to themselves very positive things. And many people who have felt very negative, as they think it through, they might realize how many negative things they attracted on the day that they were feeling very bad. I don't understand that. It might be some energy. I don't have any idea. I know that electricity existed way before we ever supposedly discovered it or developed it. You know, there are certain forces that exist that we're unaware of right now. I know one thing. There's something to this energy. I kept watching these people without me touching any area of their life. All we did was change their mind. They changed their life. They attracted a different lifestyle. For example, people who walk around, let's say that you had awakened this morning and decided you were going to be in a total, let's say angry. All day long you had decided you were going to be angry. As you walk around in El Paso, Texas in an angry state of consciousness, you will tend to attract not only other angry people, but those exact irritating things that anger you. Now this is getting kind of mystical. The point is this though. I don't care if it's mystical or not mystical. I don't care where it comes from. I'm telling you this is absolutely accurate and it works consistently. Like attracts like. Positive attracts positive things into your life. Negative attracts negative things into your life. Fear attracts into your life exactly that which you fear. How important to be aware of this. Our minds have power to cause and attract things to ourselves.
Okay, so then how does a person, someone in the audience watching who feels he or she is not centered right now and wants to become centered?
Okay, now let me just tell you some of the aspects that affect it. First of all, if you get around a centered person, even for a little while, it's as contagious as negativity is. Go be around someone very negative for a while and you get you start feeling yourself negative. Being just around something, which would mean something external, a person, a sunset, nature, okay, those things, external things, can move you into your center. Okay, so we can do it that way. Or you can learn to generate it yourself, to move into that space by yourself. Now, I'm going to tell you the one thing that affects a person's ability to get and stay centered. If you're holding a grudge against anybody in your past, you're going to have a lot of difficulty getting centered. It's a negative thought that's stuck there in your unconscious mind. To get centered, you have to move totally into the present moment, into a very positive state of consciousness. All right, if you have a negative state of consciousness sitting there, it tends to cloudy up the issues. So my therapy, the first several sessions, is forgiveness. The only way to wipe your past clean of negativity is to forgive it. That means forgiving the people who hurt you and forgiving yourself who hurt others. If you could forgive your whole past, then you can get centered. Centeredness is so simple. It means getting in the present moment, in a state of agape love, or universal love. You know, the Greeks had 3 different words for love. Filial, which would mean brother, sister kind of thing. Then the eros love, which would mean husband, wife kind of thing. And then there's the agape love, which is the highest. And that's what centeredness is. It's an extremely high form of love where you attach yourself to higher things.
Okay, before when you were talking, you pointed physically
Yes.
toward your heart.
Yes.
How?
It's moving into your heart.
Okay.
It's a form of moving into the heart.
So it's achieving and maintaining a heart consciousness, as it were.
Well, you could do it right now very easily. Would you like to see how to do it very easily?
Please.
Okay, it's very simple. All right. Give me all of your past for a moment. All the negative things that have happened to you, people you've hurt, people who've hurt you, any kind of negativity. Just pop it here for 1 second. In other words, pretend like I hit you in the head and you have no past. Okay, you're sitting there and you just know your name and you're there, okay?
Okay.
Give me your future also, okay, for a few moments, where you trust your future. In your case, if you believe in a higher power, throw your future into your higher power's hands or God's hands. If you don't believe in God, throw it into Destiny's hands. But pop it over here for a minute.
Okay.
Then you actually, it's a form of extremely profound focus, which I teach people to actually put their hands up like this and to focus in their eyes very strongly into the present moment. So right here, I'm here now. Now I'm here. Now I'm here. Okay, it's almost like a camera, focusing in tight and taking it one frame at a time. All right, that's how we get in the present moment. For some people, I've told them, pretend like your body is a farmhouse and pretend like your eyes are the windows of the farmhouse. And just get out and behind the window and look out through your windows right now. All right, so you have no past, you gave it to me. You have no future, you threw that in someone else's hands or something else's hands. You're in the present moment. Now, centeredness means being in the present moment in a state of love. So now we would have to do what I do a lot of when I give these trainings that I do of neuro-linguistic programming, which I'm not going to go into right yet or right now. But move into a time when you felt totally filled with love. As you go back over your timeline, go ahead and recall one time.
I'm recalling when I was a little boy sitting on my mother's lap.
Okay, now, could you step back into your body so that you're actually sitting, closing your eyes, and you're actually sitting on your mother's lap? And you move right there, and you're really there. Look at her little ojitos, her little eyes, and look at her, okay? Now, you are totally centered right now, Romeo. You're in the present moment. At least your body is, okay? But the thing is, you're in the present moment in a state of love. And see, the present moment, it brings you now back here. Now, let me tell you what just happened. You're centered, but you're centered in the past right now. Could you bring yourself back to now and bring with you the feeling that you had on your mother's lap? This is called centeredness. This is what I discovered by watching my beautiful, very beloved clients over the years. And also, this is what I'm dedicating my life to doing, is to stay here as much as I possibly can. So you're in the state of consciousness. Now, how on earth could you maintain this till tomorrow at the same time it is right now, 24 hours? The power of a decision. You make up your mind, you're not budging from this position, okay? I mean, once I make up my mind that I am not budging from this position, I'm not budging, okay? Which means here I am now, and here I am now. I'm in the present moment, in a state of love. I breathed in, I breathed in a memory of your mother, okay? I mean, not that I was there, but, you know,
you're feeling
just get into your higher self, all right?
Okay, so we trigger it.
We trigger it
by
a past
re-experiencing a wonderful love experience.
Yes.
That at that time was in the present, at that time was positive and wholesome.
And just bring it back here and hold it here and don't budge. Okay? It's a state of consciousness. We have in our past every kind of state of consciousness you could ever want, every positive resource you could ever want. We have had it. We've done it in the past. Okay? If you needed courage right now, all right? There's been some moment in your past that you had courage. Even it was just going to school takes courage, okay? The first time you learned to walk took courage. We can take that feeling of courage and get so that we can feel it right in the now. The one that I most like to install in people is this feeling of centeredness, that you can come back here anytime you want. Now, if you wanted to come back to that feeling of centeredness, for example, if you wanted to get in the present moment, in a state of love, what would be something you could think about and so you could get right back into it right now?
Well, the image again of
Your
my
mama's
mother,
face?
but yes, but there are 1,000 images I can pick from.
Correct. And see, what we do is, you just keep coming back to here, now, in a state of love. What happens, that's the most amazing thing of all, is that when after the session, my first session with my clients, and we get to this state of consciousness together, I send them home with a homework assignment to hold this state of consciousness for 24 hours, no matter what. Now, of course, not one of my clients have thought that they could do it. Well, I can't do that. Yes, you can. You'd be surprised at what we can do through the power of a decision. And I actually give them an example. If you get out there and someone has stolen your car, you've got to wait till after 24 hours to get upset. All right, it's basically taking control of your emotions and refusing to feel anything but love.
How might you answer a challenge to this view?
Give it to me.
Of someone saying, well, we're supposed to feel anger and hate and frustration and all these other emotions. God gave us more than just the one.
Sure.
How would you respond to something like that?
You're going to feel all those emotions as long as you're living in a human body. We don't have to train you to feel angry and train you to feel hurt and train you to feel afraid. Those things will always be a part of you as long as you're living in a human body. But no one ever trained us how to get in this state of consciousness, so we had a choice. I'd like to have a choice what I'm going to feel if someone steals my car. Okay, I'd like to have a choice.
You could respond. You could choose to respond with anger, or you could choose to respond with being centered and.
Absolutely, I would never eliminate someone's choice.
Give him the other cloak, as it were.
I'd just like to give a new choice.
To yourself.
To yourself, so that if you have a choice when you get home or you bump into a student in the hall and they're screaming at you for some reason, if you had a choice between staying very focused, very loving, very compassionate, or choosing anger. As long as you have a choice, maybe anger would work more effectively with that person, but you have a choice.
Okay.
What I have found is that this present moment state of love is not necessarily joy or happy. I mean, it could also be extremely assertive. Okay, but I'm here now, and I'm doing what's necessary. In other words, it's instead of a lot of negative emotion taking over me, if I have to be assertive, I can stay centered and be very assertive without the anger.
Advise a client or even for yourself as you start with love, but now you want to become assertive? Would you go back and pick a moment in your past when you were assertive, or pick someone else's assertiveness?
The beautiful part about getting centered, you don't have to go to the past anymore. You're sitting right here in the present moment, and you have access to all the resources.
Okay, but say you're centered, you're feeling love, but now you want to feel strength. Okay. What would you do to facilitate feeling strength so that you could be as assertive in a situation as you want to be, as that circumstance
Let me tell you what I do. See, this is it takes therapy, it takes time, different things. For example, what I do is first teach people to enter this state of consciousness, okay? And then to hold it for 24 hours. And the first 24 hours are the hardest. They tend to be the hardest. By the time a person has maintained the state of consciousness for 24 hours, they tend to skip to 2 or 3 days. We're developing a new habit of thought, okay? When they can stay for 2 or 3 days, they tend to skip to a couple of weeks. Now, once we're stabilized here, then I start teaching them how to use it for other things. First, let's go for the very highest of all choices. Then, now let me say this. Very seldom is anger the most effective choice a person can have. In Spanish, we say, el que se enoja siempre pierde. The one who gets mad always loses. Well, I mean, go look at karate, go look at Tai Chi, okay? When they're doing Aikido, okay, as long as they don't get mad, they've got control of all these different resources. The minute that someone gets mad, they lose the tournament. And it's really accurate. Your whole body tenses up. Your mind shuts down, except to just 2 or 3 things. So I would say, yes, let's work to feel less and less anger every day through feeling more and more love.
In terms of children, those in our audience who might be young themselves or who oversee children of their own, or maybe as teachers in a school, whatever, how young a person can learn to be centered? When might we start?
Good question.
Working with them?
If we just stopped teaching them so much anger and fear and those things, we'll never have to teach them. They should teach us. We're born centered. We're born in the present moment in a state of love. And then we learn the other stuff. So the less fear that we can install in our children, the better. One thing is caution. Okay, another thing is fear.
Mm.
Okay? We're born centered. Maybe we should be learning from them instead of trying to teach them.
Okay.
So, you know, it's a matter of returning as a child, until thou becometh as a child. A child looks out through their eyes before we teach them anything. Maybe a 6 months old child, let's say, before we've taught them too much, all right, about fear. You know, they look out through their eyes. They're very much in the present moment. And anyone who's dealt with children and looked at children, tell me if they're in a state of love or not. They're sitting there like that, just looking in a state of love. All right? That doesn't mean you cannot access incredible wisdom, intelligence. You know, it's not like you're just a robot there feeling a lot of love. Not at all. Love is a very powerful emotion. And it's not at all weak. Some people have told me, Sharon, if I walk around being in a state of love, I'm going to be weak. Excuse me. Love is the most powerful emotion a person can feel. It doesn't mean we're a pushover.
Let's change the level.
Yeah.
We've been working with individuals.
Okay?
How might you apply this to an organizational context? I mean,
Okay.
I don't know if any organization has ever come to you and asked them
Yes, many of them have.
to use something like this, but how might you recommend this to corporations and organizations as something that would be well for the corporation if all, or at least many of their employees, workers, would adopt this attitude?
Well, are you saying how would I sell it to them or how I would teach them?
Yeah, how
I do many of those. I take organizations. I go in, let's say that recently a hospital in town allowed me to have a wonderful training with some of the highest people in their organization, 55 of them. It was fabulous. You teach them how to get in the present moment, how to center themselves. Okay, then I sent them out for a week using this. And, you know, once you've used it to see how you get your outcomes effortlessly, you know, they end up
so
doing
supervisor and the subordinate relationship
It's very
would be
contagious.
influenced by this.
See, for there to be a problem at work between a supervisor and a supervisee, whatever that is, all right, it would require both of them. Both people would have to get upset. Both people would have to be uncentered. If one person maintains that high positive mindset, the other one has two choices. They'll either move into that mindset with that person or they'll move away from them. Okay? So it's very contagious. In family therapy, you know, sometimes the only person I can get in there is the mother. Okay? And nobody else wants to come or whatever. If you send the mother home into that home and she learns to consistently stay in that state of consciousness, it will raise the level of the whole house. I don't know if you've ever tried to live around someone very positive and stay negative. I would imagine it would be difficult. Like it's difficult if you live around someone very negative to stay positive.
Okay.
So as far as it's how I sell it to companies, through past results. Okay, I think we call it attitudinal change, team building, self-empowerment, self-reliance. I mean, we can call it whatever we want. I teach people to get centered.
So centering is living in the present.
Very powerfully.
Positive, powerful love. Maintaining it in spite of changing environmental conditions and personalities.
And of course, no one can do it consistently. You would be a perfected being if you could stay centered consistently. Now, what I was going to tell you is, after the 24 hours that I help people to get centered, then what they've got to be careful about is to not judge anybody, because it'll turn the light right back off again.
Okay.
So judging is something to...
Okay. So being centered, non-judgmental,
Yes,
and forgiving.
forgiving.
And we can maintain this posture, and when necessary, simply repeat it.
Exactly. Present moment, state of love.
Well, Sharon, I want to thank you very much for sharing these thoughts and techniques and purposes of centering. It's a very rich process. I can attest from my own experience, having learned this from you a couple of years ago. It's the technique I personally use myself as I begin each recording session here. And I want to thank you once again on my own personal behalf and on behalf of our viewing audience.
Thank you, Romeo.